Hi everyone, my name is Lydia and this is what I wish they taught me about econometrics and introduction. In the previous videos, we have looked at yes-no decisions. In this video, we're going to make a transition from yes-no decisions to ranges of plausible values by introducing to you the concept of confidence intervals. Hypothesis testing always answers yes or no questions. Is this coefficient statistically different from zero? But sometimes that will not just be the answer or the question that we really care about. And that's why we need confidence intervals, because they give us a richer way to think about uncertainty. So imagine two estimates, one just barely statistically significant and one that is very strongly significant. So any hypothesis testing that you will run will give you the same answer. Reject the null. But these two estimates are not equally informative. So what we're missing in here is basically a sense of how large the effect could possibly be and how uncertain we are about it. Okay. So a confidence interval will answer a different question, exactly like which values of the parameter are plausible given the data and the model that we are estimating. So instead of us having a number and one decision based on that number, for the confidence intervals, we get a range. And that range also reflects uncertainty. This range is centered around the estimate, but the width of it reflects how noisy the estimate is. So range centered around estimate plus the width reflecting the noise. Remember, estimates vary from sample to sample because data are random. So if we repeated the same study many times, we would get many different estimates. A confidence interval uses this idea to say, most of the time, so out of all of the time that I ran and repeated that study, so most of the time, the true parameter would lie in a range like this. So that's the logic behind it. And this is also where many students might get confused because, for instance, they will see expressions like 95% confidence. Okay? Now, a 95% confidence interval is not equal to say that there is 95% probability the true parameter lies inside this specific interval. What it means instead is that if we repeated this procedure many times, 95% of the constructed intervals would contain the true parameter. So this randomness is in the interval, not the parameter. Okay? The width of the confidence interval instead, so the width, tells you how precise the estimate is and how much uncertainty remains. Which means that the wider your interval, the bigger the uncertainty. And the narrow the interval, it means, well, the more precise you were. And this immediately should connect you back to concepts such as the variance, standard errors, and sample size. Okay? Things and concepts that we have already seen and talked about in this playlist. So why do economists love confidence intervals? Well, because confidence intervals let us assess statistical significance. They let us evaluate economic magnitude, and also it allows us to see uncertainty more directly. So this is what requires a bit more of critical thinking instead of just having the yes or no kind of decision, which is what economists actually want in their studies. So as a recap, a confidence interval is a range of parameter values that are consistent with the data giving simple sampling uncertainty. Okay? In the next video, we'll make a very powerful connection between confidence interval and hypothesis testing, which are actually two sides of the same coin. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.